decide you're going to have a divorce, your husband, you may feel like he is your enemy now, or she is your enemy now, your wife. And but at that point, once you get the divorce, and it can be messy, it can be just very traumatic, very messy. There's so many scenarios in divorce, but it doesn't matter what the scenario was leading up to the divorce. Once that divorce is in place, he's not your enemy.
Yeah, he actually
Or
becomes
she's not your enemy.
they become partners in raising your children.
Partners in raising those kids. If not partners, at least you're not enemies.
Right.
You should be able to hand off the kids back and forth without any trouble. And if that takes law enforcement being there when you hand off the kids, that's fine, do that. But it will keep things civil.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't ever have to like that ex-spouse again. And what you've really got to get to, and this is a healing point, the sooner you can get to the point that that spouse has no control over me. That spouse has nothing to do with the rest of my life other than being taking a role in helping raise my kids. Other than that, that spouse has no control over me. So why are you still fighting the war
Right.
that was going on before you got a divorce? Didn't you get a divorce to stop the war?
Yeah. Yeah. So the being successful in divorce is going to be an intentional process. It's not natural. It's an unnatural process. It's unnatural for us not to retaliate. It's unnatural for us not to share our pain and to voice our dislike and our discomfort. So it's a very unnatural process. But in order to be successful, you have to step outside of the emotional, become intentional, set some parameters, get some good resources, get some good relationships, create some routine, do those things. Here's the thing that's going to come out of that. Your own personal mental health is going to be better.
Yes.
And if you can get to the place where your personal mental health is going to be better, like you said, healing's going to come, and it's going to come quicker. It's going to come easier. And then, again, you have to assess what are my goals in this divorce. My goals in this divorce is to be separated from or to dissolve a relationship that's been harmful to me. And so if I dissolve that relationship that's been harmful to me and I move outside of that relationship and now I'm no longer in that relationship, now my goal is to make that transition the best it can be for my children. And that's it. That's it. You can't have any other goal until those children fall into that new norm and life becomes routine again and that chaos is over with. Your only goal should be, how can I best serve my children during this time of divorce? That may sound a little harsh, a little unfair. It's not. They did not ask to be in this position.
No.
They did not participate in the dissolution of the relationship. Their perfect plan. Mom and Dad gets along great. We all live happily ever after. So none of this is their responsibility. It falls on the parent to assume the responsibility of that child's mental well-being in the process of a divorce, and that can be your only focus.
You will know you're successful. I think one way to gauge whether you're being successful in it or not is if your kids can feel like the only thing that happened was that your spouse doesn't live here with us anymore.
That's right. Mom
Everything's the same,
Yep.
but
Mom and Dad live in different
I go
houses.
see Dad here, I go see Mom there. And just to give you some comfort, one thing, maybe you stopped loving your spouse, your kids didn't.
That's right.
It's still their mom, it's still their dad. They don't, not only they not want to hear anything negative about their mom or dad, but they still love the other parent. And by them loving the other parent does not take away one bit of how much they love you.
That's right. Even if that other parent doesn't pay child support, that child doesn't care. He still loves that other parent. Even if that
Yeah.
other parent has been abusive in the past, they still love them. We still loved our dad.
Yeah.
You know, when dad left, we still loved him. We still had that connection. And then our relationship with him is then predicated on how he responds to us, because it has nothing to do with mom anymore. It's just now
Yeah.
us and him. And that relationship can either grow or fail. It's up to the individuals then, but we still loved him even though he didn't pay child support, even though he didn't.
Yeah. We did love him, okay. No, we did.
Well, when we were
I'm just-
11, 12, 13 years
Yeah.
old. That's why I say after that, the relationship that I had with him was predicated then upon, not upon him and mama getting a divorce, but on how he treated me or how he responded.
Right.
And when he became absent from my life, absence in some ways does not always make the heart grow fonder.
Yeah.
It creates a distance.
And we have each given him time and time again to be that father.
Right.
Even, we may go 10 years without talking to him, but then he comes back into our life and we're willing to give him another chance.
Mhm.
And he fails again.
Right.
Over and over, but we did give him that chance. Let me ask you, what if that other spouse that the person that's divorcing, they have kids together, what about if that other spouse is, say, a drug addict?
Mm.
How do you allow that person, your kids, to see their other parent?
Yeah, that's a good question. Again, the number one thing is the safety and the well-being of the children. You had mentioned it earlier that even if it takes an intervention by legal means, I still believe there has to be some contact, some communication for
I
the
do too.
child's well-being. If, in my opinion, if the dad or mom who is no longer in the home with the children, is struggling with drugs or alcohol or whatever, and their life is in chaos, the best thing, and this is hard, the absolute best way to handle that would be to have that spouse come to your house to see the children, and you have someone there in a professional role.
Yeah.
Maybe not necessarily a police officer, but maybe a DHS agent or someone like that in the house too, while they visit.
Right.
Here's the thing that you can do then. Number one, your children then see mom or dad, whoever it is wanting me and helping me see my other
Mhm.
parent. And so you're not damaging that relationship. Two, you're showing that other parent that opportunity's here. You just have to get yourself right for that opportunity to go forward. But absolutely, bar none, the most important thing is the safety and well-being of that child.
It may be that they meet them at a park.
Absolutely.
It may be that the grandparents can be an intervention
That's
person,
right.
that
Absolutely.
it can happen at their
At their
house.
house, yeah.
So-
And it could be, the parental, the fraternal or the maternal, whichever the case may be, it doesn't really matter. But yeah, I think you've stressed this really well, that the number one thing is the safety and well-being of the children, mentally, emotionally, physically, financially. That's the key thing. That's the most important
Right.
thing. The other thing I would tell you, if you were the parent who is paying child support, child support is, in my opinion, it can be such a terrible thing, because you then feel like that you're purchasing some right. You're not. That right, that is not even really a right. It's a responsibility.
That's right.
Give that money out of love. If it pays a light bill, if it pays a gas bill, if it pays a water bill, if it pays part of the rent, if it pays the car note,
If you never know where that money goes, it doesn't matter.
it doesn't matter. You have the responsibility, and it doesn't matter if anybody else knows. You've done what's right, as it pertains to raising your children. So give it out of a cheerful heart. Give it knowing that this benefits and betters your children's life.
I was dating a woman a couple years ago, and she had been divorced and had a son that was in college. And she was still having to pay through the court had ordered her to pay. Can't remember. It seemed like it was $700 or $800 a month. And she was a nurse in a field area of medical. One of the medical fields that it paid very well,
lucrative, yeah.
very lucrative. So she had it to spend, but she complained about the $700 or $800 a month she was having to pay in child support. I was paying, I'll just say, a lot more than that, with not for child support. Well, it was child support.
Yeah, it was support.
And it was grandchildren support.
Yeah.
But it wasn't a court-ordered thing.
Right.
You know, so, you want your children to be in a good situation. Some parents think, well, some people think, go at it with the attitude, I'll starve them out.
Right.
You know, if it proves that they can't financially take care of the kids, I'll take care of them. You know,
Right.
I'll get custody of them.
Right.
That's so wrong.
That's absolutely right. Well, we're running out of time, so we're going to try to wrap things up a little bit. We've talked about successful divorce, and I know it sounds like an oxymoron,
Yeah.
but there are ways to be successful or to have as much success as possible inside of a divorce.
You know, divorce is supposed to be the end of something. I think you said it a while ago. It's supposed to be the end of something. Why keep it the
Right,
rest of your life in turmoil because of it?
right. It's called beating a dead horse.
Yeah.
It's not been, there's no benefit in it. It ain't gonna move. So, we've identified a few things for you, and I hope that they've helped. Remember, inside a divorce, remember, number one, you can always turn to Christ. God loves us even in those most stressful times, and that's where we can find our greatest solace. But outside of that, we in good Christian counseling, outside of that, we've identified have a relationship with an accountability partner.
Yes.
Do your best to search out resources and try to put into your mind that other spouse can be, if they're good for your children, a great resource. Not a relationship, a resource, and there's a big difference. And then, thirdly, create routine as quick as possible. You know, try to keep as much routine as you can with where the family has been, and then beyond that, create that new routine to where they feel that security and that safety, and try to have that interrupted as little as possible. And I think those three things are huge and go a long way. Be intentional. This is not an easy time in your life.
That's right.
You're moving through a lot of emotions. You're really struggling to even to get through the day sometimes, and you want to.
It's not easy.
No, and you want to respond emotionally, but try to be intentional in that. Respond emotionally to your accountability partner. Respond emotionally to your counselor. Let those people be the people who you pour out emotionally to. But when you come home, you've got to be intentional. You've got to create safety and harmony and routine for those children.
And you can't stay in your bedroom crying all night. You got to be with the kids and have some kind of positive
That's right.
environment. It's so, when you're hurt, it don't matter if it's from your spouse or from your family members or somebody like that close to you. When you're hurt, it's so natural to want to tell somebody
Mm-hmm.
and complain to everybody. Now, with men, if you get a cold, you want to complain to everybody.
That's
right. But you want to complain to everybody, but when you can't tell anybody, know that God will reward you and repay you for that hurt if you keep from sharing the bad news to everybody.
That's exactly right. So as we wrap up today, our first hope is that if you are struggling with this issue and you're going through the process of divorce, our hope is that that you find healing for all of your hurt as quick as possible, and that God just brings you
Yes.
out of this quickly. Secondly, we pray that there are no long-term impacts on your children, and talking about the emotional part and the crying and everything. I heard of a pastor one time that he said when bad things would happen, he'd go in his office and he'd lock the door and he'd set a timer. And for 20 minutes, he'd sit on the floor and he'd just complain. He'd complain to God about everything. and when the timer went off, he got up and never said another word about it.
That's
And
good.
maybe you find you're a spot to complain. But anyway, we hope that you've enjoyed this segment. We are. I hope you'll like our page and maybe pass it along, share it with somebody that is going through some trouble, and maybe some of these things even apply to your life outside of the divorce. But we want you to have a successful divorce. I know that sounds funny, but we want you to
be
have a
successful.
successful. That's right, in
Divorce or
everything.
not, be
That's
successful.
right. So, well, thanks for being with us again. I'm Jeff,
And Kevin.
and we're Common Sense Cafe.